What's up, guys? King Drew here with my co-host.
Life first in the building, you already know what it is.
So I want to thank you guys for checking out our video. Yes, I want to and also welcome you guys to the Question Everything series on King Talk Live, where we talk about current events, and if we're feeling good, we'll throw in a little bit of personal development in there, so you can go a little deeper in understanding you. So today we have some hot ones, man.
All right, guys. So for this next segment, we're going to go into the consciousness, right? And in order for us to really pay attention to understanding what this manipulation is, you always have to ask yourself, what level of consciousness are you operating on, right? So, which happened to be a Twitter question. So again, we appreciate it, right? Very, very, very enlightened question. So, what level of consciousness are you operating on, right? Now, you got to say to yourself, right, as an individual, specific to this perception, right? So, what is life? What are you trying to get out of life, right? So, when you wake up, specific to your goals that you set forth, specific to the day, how it correlates to the week, so forth, etc. Right? You got to say to yourself, in what state of mind are you operating on in order to achieve such goals, right? So, as we know, right, through our evolution, we go through stages, right? And I think specific to what we're doing, we need to ask ourselves always, how are we operating, specific to what level of consciousness, right? You have to, because anything that you do, you have to say to yourself that, and again, it can just be walking down the street, right? You have to be in tune to a certain level of consciousness, because then if not, you'll be like this with blinders on. And that means you're only able to see what this manipulation is, as opposed to having vision into understanding it like a bird's eye view, in terms of seeing it as as it all comes together, right? So what level of consciousness are you operating on, right? So ask yourself this, people. Who and what entity controls your consciousness? You got to ask yourself that, right? Because meaning what? If it's your consciousness, then again, who and what entity controls that consciousness? So meaning what? So when you go and you clock in and you punch in, now are you still presumed to have full control over your own consciousness, right? Or now are you operating underneath the confine of someone else telling you how your consciousness should be in that particular moment, right? So because this is where these emotions comes from, right? This is where these feelings come from, right? Oh, this chick aggravated me. Oh, this guy just rubbed me the wrong way, so forth, etc. So meaning what? Your state of consciousness now it's free for all, right? So meaning anyone could get in there and create a perception towards your consciousness, to where now you emotionally start to react based upon what your reality might be in that moment, right? So this is why, again, it's extremely important when you think about consciousness, right? You got to say to yourself, like, because I feel like that word sometimes gets misrepresented, right? To where it's applicable in scenarios where your consciousness, right, is it doesn't turn off and on. Your consciousness is your consciousness, right? Let me take that back. So frequencies have it to where our consciousness is operating on a certain wavelength, right? Now you have to say to yourself is, well, how do you keep your conscious turned on? Turned on in that sense, as opposed to once you get underneath these certain frequencies, it turns it off, right? So and that's how I would say that, right? So again, people, this is the reason why the emphasis is on consciousness, specific to how this is being conveyed, is because you have to say to yourself, right, who is in control of your consciousness? And why are you willingly giving such entity access to something that you yourself probably don't even know how special or what that really is, even in its entirety, right? So something to keep in mind too, and I could assure you, being on here, we will deconstruct it all, right? Specific to in a more broader enlightenment as far as consciousness, right? So I'm going to digress there, right? And we'll keep building on this great topic.
Good question. What level of consciousness are you operating on? And we're gonna put a picture that explain, well, not explain, but capture the spectrum of frequencies in terms of that. And for me, per se, I'm right there. When you see the picture, you understand what I'm talking about. At the level of peace and joy, where it takes a lot outside of me to really throw me off of who I am. So when I first came across this information, I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And I feel like at the end of the day, like you said, as you're going through your day, it's shifting based on how aware you are. Because if you're not aware, it's just going to be, I'm good, I'm not feeling good, I'm good, I'm not feeling good, as you go throughout your day. But if you're aware, it's like, hey, any moment that happened is neutral. That's something that we have to understand. And if you're on this platform, I'm pretty sure you're at the level where you can understand that every moment is neutral. But if this is new information to you, you got to understand that it is neutral. And when it happens, hopefully you make that decision, but sometimes it's subconscious or unconscious, whatever you want to call it, that you make that decision. And that's based on your conditioning. As you're growing up, hey, if this happens, it's bad. But you can have another person on the other side of the world that same thing that you think is bad is good. So, like I said, it's neutral. Because you have two different people that was raised in two different environments, and they both experience the same thing, and it's one saying is good and one saying is bad. So that means that it's neutral. So as you go throughout your experience, and anything that you experience, you can find the good within that. So let's just bring it back to the level of consciousness. It's like you got to get to a level where it's like, hey, all that's happening is supposed to happen, like we mentioned before. And as you're going through it, you got to understand that when you look back at those moments, right, you realize that, hey, if that didn't happen, I wouldn't be where I am now. So, and as you're operating through the levels of consciousness and you're flowing, it's not bad to observe yourself, because you want to make sure you're on the level of the higher levels of frequencies instead of the lower levels. And yes, it may be something that's so dramatic that you can't even, at that point, it's beyond your control. Where it's like, okay, somebody passed away or whatever the case may be. That's hard for you to be like, yeah, I need to be positive about it. That's tough. There's no way you're going to, in that situation, it's hard for anybody to be positive in that situation. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, when it comes to what level of consciousness are you operating on, I feel like it's more so just being more aware. Just being aware of the levels. Because I'm telling you, in certain situations, where it's something you may perceive it to be bad, you may say, okay, so why is it that this happened to me, right? Go through that situation. You driving, whatever, you get a flat tire, boom, you already either on the way to work, you're going to be late, or you're on your way to work and you're like, this is the day where I'm going to be really early, I could chill outside in the car or whatever the case may be. And here we go, flat tire consumed that time that you would have been sitting outside. Or you can be like, oh my God, I'm late. I'm going to be 30 minutes late because of this flat tire, whatever the case may be. But it's like, same scenario. It's all about taking how you want to receive that scenario that's happening to you. Because within that moment, I'll do this one for the ladies, right? So say, for instance, you've been looking for a guy, whatever the case may be, right? You've been looking for a guy, and it's like, now you got that flat tire, right? And then boom, somebody pulls over or comes out the car. It's whatever. It's the guy you're looking for, he's talking to you, helped you out. Didn't need to. He could have just drove past. He just say, seeing you, whatever the case may be, you met that guy in an instant, right? Now, for the person that didn't meet that guy, they will probably perceive that flat tire is like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that ever happened to me. I'm going to be late. Now I'm probably going to be fired. But that person that did meet that guy in that instance, like, oh, wow, if that never happened, I would have never met such and such. You know what I mean? So it always goes back to it's neutral. So being a neutral, if you go and look at the list, is one of the things that it's on the list. I'm gonna pull it up. I'm gonna have it over there so you can see that neutral is like the middle of between higher vibration and lower vibration. So the reason why I made that correlation was pretty much so you can understand that, hey, when it comes to all moments, every moment, it's neutral. And then the definite that we put behind it, or the energy, or whatever you want to call it, is pretty much the thing that defines that. Because as we go through it, right, we realize that, hey, it's not bad or good. It's just part of the journey. And I think that's the key component. It's a part of the journey, and everything happens for a reason, because that was supposed to happen. So per se, the level that you're operating on is the higher, the better, and there's moments where it's tough to try to be at those higher levels, but the deeper takeaway from all of that is just to be aware of where you're on, what level you're operating on. That's the key component there. It's like being aware and getting to the level. It's like, okay, you know what? I feel like I'm on the lower spectrum of consciousness, and let's work towards being on a higher level. So for me, when it comes to the level of consciousness that you're operating on, I would say try to be on the higher side as much as you can. Yes, there's moments where it's like, yo, this is not, I can try all I want, but yeah, it's just too tough for me to get to the higher levels. But as you go through your day and your experience, make sure you are aware of the levels that you're operating on. So, that was just a quick conversation of us talking about what level of consciousness are you operating on. It's a Twitter questions, man. The Twitter questions keep coming hot, and we want to thank you guys for constantly just asking these questions, because that's some great topics that we need to touch on. So
and even to that point, right, which could seem like in this particular time, when it comes to how certain things is being conveyed, you have a significant void, right, to when it comes to talking about things that are actually is a result of such causes, right? So we talk a lot about cause and effect, right? So a lot of the times, right, we find ourselves which now are dealing with such effects, right? Unfortunately, the parallel there is they rather, when it's convenient, right, to when certain levels of resistance starts to begin, right? Oh, they will start to cherry pick the effects based upon, as opposed to talking about the cause, because the moment they start to shed some light on what's actually causing the effects, then you already know what would then start to happen from there. But in that sense, why we love this is because why, man, we understand, right? That so now we're able to understand that these types of conversations is absolutely necessary, right? And to double down on that, because we see how you guys is engaging with us, right? We do spaces on Twitter. Again, right, shout out to all of you real ones for pulling out, right, joining the space with us, right? Beam us up, right? So when we go into spaces, man, we cover a range of different topics across the spectrum specific to individuals as far as how they associate within the confine of this reality. So it's interesting to hear other people thinks, right? But the overwhelming consensus is what is to be able to articulate yourself without someone now, regardless of your position, right? Without you feeling now that you will be some kind of reactionary, circumstances will happen based upon you just simply trying to express, again, based upon the effects. Unfortunately, we don't talk about the cause, but even the effects, think about that. Even the effects, they're like, helps. Nah, we can't even talk about. So when you think about that perception, again, it's always been us, right? And it will continue to be us. And we appreciate, again, you guys with these great questions, because it amplifies it even to a higher frequency. So again, we salute you
So
guys.
we want to thank you guys for watching, and definitely, if you are a new subscriber, you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell. And if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back, man. Thank y'all for watching. Make sure comment down below how you feel on everything that we talk about. Don't just be a silent watcher, man, because your thoughts, express them. We won't judge you. So, like first, if you want to say something to the people before we get out of here, man.
Absolutely. Right. Again, we appreciate you guys. We appreciate the pull up. Let's not perpetuate these algorithm tendencies. We all know what it is. It's simple, right? People, you're engaging, right? You're engaging. And again, right, we appreciate that, right? Now you got to say to yourself, it's simple. It's either you're engaging with algorithm tendencies, meaning what? You're going to do exactly what you set out to do, or if what the same amount of time it takes for someone to literally click on to a content, right? Is as soon as you, like for me, for instance, right? What I would say is this: anyone that I'm a follower of in that sense, right? That means what? That means based upon the content that this individual, I might agree with all of it, but guess what? I still follow that individual, right? What I would then say is this: as soon as I click onto the video, I'm a like it, regardless of the fact, because why? I follow this individual, right? So, but you have groups that you follow, and you got to say to yourself, if you're not gaining anything from it, unfollow it, because all you're doing is you're added to the algorithm based upon how that perception is. Because on one hand, you might see where you have a bunch of engagements, but then it's nothing, right? So you might see, oh, so you have, viewers, but no one is really saying anything, right? So it takes seconds. And again, if you rock with us, you rock with us. If you're an algorithm, you're the algorithm. When you're talking to the algorithm, you're talking to the people who rock with us. So I simply say that to say this again, we rock with you guys, we appreciate you.